Thank you for joining us for this look at some of the best stories from KPBS News this week. I'm John Carroll. Coming up, it's been 50 years since the end of the Vietnam War. We'll share a portion of our new KPBS digital series highlighting the stories of San Diego's Vietnamese community. A former San Diego mayor has died. We look back on the controversial end to Bob Filner's political career and see how mountain biking is helping kids on the autism spectrum in the South Bay. We start with a follow-up to the recent immigration raid in El Cajon. One of the men who was detained talked to Gustavo Solis about the impact it's had on his family.
When Immigration and Customs Enforcement arrested her husband, Blanca Corona's life was thrust into chaos. In an instant, she was shouldering tremendous financial and emotional burdens.
Now I have to pick up more than I normally picked up shifts. And then we have to take our kids to practice, and then my other ones have to go to boxing, and it's tiring.
Corona's husband, Jorge Lopez, was one of 15 people arrested during a workplace raid near El Cajon in March.
I've been here for 15 years here in the same address.
Lopez came to the U.S. when he was 13.
Those are my kids.
And has been the primary breadwinner of his family, but he does not have legal status. Corona is a U.S. citizen, and so are the couple's 4 children. But they are still directly impacted by President Donald Trump's mass deportation campaign. Corona is working extra hours to keep the family afloat, and she's also coping with the emotional toll on her children.
My other daughter would sleep with either his shirt or a picture of him all night crying.
Another daughter became obsessed with the idea that her father would miss her upcoming birthday.
She was every day, is my dad coming back for my birthday? Is my dad coming? And the only thing I want for my birthday is my dad to be home.
But last Saturday, on her 8th birthday, that little girl's wish came true. On April 18th, an immigration judge released Lopez on bond. He will fight the pending deportation case from his home in Escondido. Lopez says that the month he spent at the Otay Mesa Detention Center is the longest he's ever been away from his children.
It was nice seeing my family. Cried. I haven't seen them. I feel like I haven't seen them for so long. Yeah, because we're always been together most of the time. We're pretty close. Yeah.
Lopez remains in touch with coworkers who are still inside the detention center. He says most of the men are terrified of being deported.
Depression. There were some people that were crying most of the time.
He also noticed that a lot of them are not violent or dangerous. Some have been arrested for driving without a license. In Lopez's case, his only blemish is a DUI conviction, and he completed more than 350 hours of court-ordered community service.
You see like different people from different cells, and then you start talking to people. Oh yeah, I'm here for like I said, license, or like for a DUI that I had 20, 30 years ago, and then they have their green card.
His observations stand in stark contrast to the Trump administration's rhetoric that they're rounding up murderers, rapists, and other dangerous criminals to keep Americans safe.
They don't say the true story, what's going on.
Federal data backs up his point. The vast majority of people detained at the Otay Mesa Detention Center are categorized as non-criminal. Because Lopez has been in the U.S. most of his life, he says he wouldn't know how to live in Mexico.
I haven't been in Mexico in so long. My whole family is here. Yeah, so the guys asked me, like, hey, do you want to go to Mexico? What do you want to do? Like, no, I want to fight. I want to fight my case.
He won an early round of that fight by getting out of the detention center. In the days leading up to the bond hearing, friends and family offered help any way they could. Tessa Cabrera is his immigration lawyer.
We get letters of support so that the judge and the court can hear from the community and how much he means to the community and his family and his children.
They're ready? I get in front of the ball. We're going to pass the ball.
Cabrera found a lot of support from parents and coaches of a youth soccer team that Lopez volunteers with. People like Bernice Lopez, whose daughter plays on the team.
That's a lot of what I wrote in there. He's always willing to see or help those around him. My kids love him, so to me it was a big thing when I found out.
Open gates, close gates, you already know.
And head coach Rafael Blanco.
She's awesome with the kids. The girls love him. They were upset when they found out what happened. They were all upset. Now that when they saw him, they were all excited to see him back again in the field. How you guys feel that Coach Negro's back?
Good!
You guys excited?
We like him.
But the happiest person to have him back on the field was his daughter, Yeretsi.
It was really great. Everybody was there to see my dad happy. They enjoyed it.
She says that even her little sister's birthday party felt more like Father's Day.
It felt like it wasn't even my sister's birthday. It felt like it was my dad's.
If you keep practicing with the left, you're going to get better.
Lopez says that coaching helps him deal with the stress of the pending deportation case. He's happy to be back in the community, surrounded by friends and family.
See, control and then pass.
Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
This week brought the 50th anniversary of the fall of Saigon. The end of the Vietnam War left behind a lasting legacy of trauma. A new KPBS digital series details the multi-generational stories of the Vietnamese diaspora. Here are some of those conversations from KPBS reporter Alexander Nguyen.
Because of the war and the refugees coming over, I think the scars of the trauma are still here.
Some of them are still fighting the war in their mind.
A lot of the memories, experiences, and traumas still follow my mom, still haunt her.
For a lot of our veterans, the war is not done because of that emotional trauma of since '75, and especially our veterans, the PTSD.
For my dad, he doesn't speak too much about his time that he served in the war on the South Side, but I can tell that he's been traumatized. I can tell that there's PTSD, there's anxiety in there as well, and probably some depression.
They put my dad in jail. My mom had to take care of everything. When he came home, he changed quite a bit, become a lot quieter, didn't share a whole lot.
The PTSD that a lot of men or older men like my father felt, and they coped with it through drinking. There was you couldn't talk about it. It was like a ghost in the room.
A lot of the memories, experiences, and traumas still follow my mom, still haunt her, to be honest. She can't talk about much of it, but when she does, she remembers all the details as clear as day. A very enduring and emotional aspect from the war that still follows her today, 50 years later, is actually her sense of patriotism towards Saigon, a love and a longing for her birthplace, for her birth city, a form of nostalgia and attachment to Saigon. She was born and raised there. And a lot of immigrants, if you get homesick, you can always travel back to your country. But for her, she occasionally, very occasionally, she will lament to me that, she misses Vietnam, she misses Saigon. And it's a country that she actually can never really visit or go home to because it's a country that no longer exists.
I think it's too painful. And I also think because within the Vietnamese community and general AAPI's, Asian American Pacific Islander populations, we tend not to air out our dirty laundry. There's a stigma against pain, trauma, mental health. So I think my parents fall within that range too of not wanting to talk about it because it brings up too much unpleasantries. And in their mind, nothing's going to be resolved anyway, so why bother talking about it?
When I think of like intergenerational trauma, and I feel like the young generation is trying to open these conversations and have these dialogue, and like a lot of the elderly generation is just still very much like, no, it's this.
It's a very fragile subject in my family, one that my grandmother, when she was alive, every time my dad and my uncles get drunk and talk about it, she would just tell them to shut up, basically. The only time I really heard about it is when my dad was drunk and my brother and my mom would talk about it, just little bits and pieces.
To folks in my parents' generation, some of them are still fighting the war in their mind. Every time I go back to Vietnam once a year to do medical missions, mom or dad would be telling me, be careful, right? Communist government. And so that sense of fear, that sense of trepidation.
I actually remember I was so fascinated about learning about Vietnam that after my freshman year of college, I actually received a fully funded scholarship to go study abroad in Vietnam. For 3 months, I bought my plane tickets, I received my student visa for the entire 3 months, and it must have been maybe 2 to 3 days before the trip, my mom just suddenly broke down and begged me not to go. And this is me at 18, 19 years old now. And so for her, 30 to 40 years after the war. And that's still her reaction to it. Because, and you have to remember, her last memory of the war was leaving to escape persecution.
There's this Vietnamese way of like, you should feel it and not talk about it. And then the American way is like, let's talk about it, you know, it's therapy, it's like face head on, you know, and so there's that, also that cultural, you know, sort of dissonance that makes it difficult to heal.
So if you're in your 20s and you're wondering why your parents are the way they are, or your 30s, imagine being now, this world is in chaos and you get exiled and you get kicked out of the United States and now you've got to go start your life somewhere all over with nothing, right? How would you manage that? And so having that kind of empathy, sympathy for that first generation is vital to part of the healing.
I think that still the majority of, say, like the American population don't know that the Vietnam War was a civil war. You know, the South Vietnamese voice is so like erased even here. That's why there's a lot of hurt, and I think that when we think of the healing that hasn't been done in the community, it comes from that erasure.
Alexander Nguyen reported that story. He produced it as well. That story is part of a 4-part video series digital series, called Fall of Saigon at 50, Stories of Loss, Legacy, and Identity. You can watch the entire series online at kpbs.org or on the KPBS YouTube page. Sign up for our newsletters to get a list of our most popular stories every day. Here are some from this week. A Rosarito Beach hotel owner reflects on the state of Baja California tourism. Andrew Bowen reports on the places where San Diego might tighten its ADU regulations. And the Trump administration cuts mental health grants for local schools. Former San Diego Mayor Bob Filner has died. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says the groping and harassment scandal that brought him down left a mark on city politics.
I,
please state your name,
Bob Filner,
do solemnly swear.
In 2012, Filner became the first Democrat elected to the San Diego mayor's office in 24 years. But he resigned less than 9 months into his term after more than a dozen women accused him of unwanted touching and verbal sexual harassment. He later pleaded guilty to battery and false imprisonment. The first accuser to come forward was Irene McCormack, who worked as Filner's communications director.
He was a detriment to the city of San Diego and to the people who work there. And I learned that community is everything. When you can gather people together to right a wrong, it can work.
McCormack says she believes justice was served and that Filner was held accountable for his actions. Filner had a long political career, serving on the San Diego City Council and 20 years in Congress.
And then he came to San Diego, and if it hadn't been for the lawsuit I filed with my attorney, Gloria Allred, and then all the people that came to support me in what I was doing, it would have just continued for years. And I'm not kidding, 3 months later, he resigned.
In the wake of the scandal, city voters passed a ballot measure creating a process for removing elected officials who are convicted of crimes or fail to perform official duties. Filner's ex-fiancée told KPBS he had been dealing with a variety of health issues and that his last residence was an assisted living home in Orange County. He died April 20th at the age of 82. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Social media has the power to influence people, and in Encinitas, an online debate on homelessness has spilled into council chambers and the community. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne says it comes on the heels of a proposed expansion to the city's resource center.
For over 40 years, people in the community have relied on the Community Resource Center in Encinitas for food and supportive services. The center is in downtown Encinitas, within walking distance to the beach, a hospital, public transportation, and public restrooms. Lately, residents and business owners say they've noticed a surge of unhoused people in the area. Some blame the CRC.
There's an assumption being made that every person experiencing homelessness in Encinitas comes to CRC. That assumption is false.
John Van Cleef is the CEO of the CRC. He says the center's food pantry serves a total of 410 people, but only 85 of them are homeless. Assumptions about the center grew when a social media page began posting pictures and videos about the CRC and homeless in the area.
Someone took the time to create a cartoon that had CRC in the background and a hand throwing crumbs out to rats and seagulls. There can be a lot of views about people experiencing homelessness. There can be a lot of perspectives on the value of our building project or not, but to present people in this way, in such a dehumanizing and morally reprehensible way, really crossed a line.
That post has been taken down. The page goes by the name of Save Encinitas Now and has 15,000 followers. Their bio says they cover key issues like homelessness, housing, crime, and tourism with humor. But the issue has gained enough traction to spill over into city council chambers, especially as the CRC looks to expand their food pantry into the building next door.
It really disappoints me that there is an expansion being considered. With that expansion is only going to expand the problem that we have.
Donette Poole is a general manager of Honey's Bistro in downtown Encinitas. She has been at the bistro for 17 years and says she has seen the homeless population grow and become more aggressive.
I've already been attacked. I've had 2 employees that have had hands-on by mentally ill, by the homeless that are aggressive when we have cut off, we don't give them coffee anymore or food.
Last year's point-in-time count data showed a 68% increase in the unsheltered population in Encinitas. Data for 2025 has not been released. Poole says she has considered hiring private security, but can't afford it due to a drop in patrons.
I do think the city isn't doing enough. They're worried about plastic straws. They're worried about parking.
She wants the newly elected mayor to keep his campaign promise to increase patrols in the area. Mayor Bruce Ehlers says sheriff's deputies are doing their best to keep up with the issues. He wants to explore all options.
Either a security service that we hire or using the volunteer patrol. We may have an opportunity there to use employees / volunteers that are there for this reason, and they can be the eyes and ears for the police.
Ehlers says the city has an obligation to continue offering resources to those in need and enforcing the law. Additional security near the CRC will be discussed at the next council meeting in 2 weeks. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
The homeless services provider Father Joe's Villages says they're seeing a 25% increase in residents seeking out mental health care this year compared to last. KPBS health reporter Heidi DeMarco says programs like theirs that pair housing with social services are more likely to help people leave homelessness for good.
When Annette Culver first met her therapist, Mark Stevenson, at Father Joe's Villages, she gave him just 15 minutes.
So I was very defiant, just waiting for him to make a wrong move. And I stayed the whole time, the whole hour talking to him.
Those 15 minutes turned into a couple of years of regular therapy sessions. Culver is diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, depression, and extreme paranoia.
And I've dealt with that all my life. So it's nice to have some control and to know what I'm facing and how to face it. And I've got the tools. To keep going on.
She's not alone. Mark Stevenson oversees the therapy programs.
Seeing 200 more individuals and families and children than we did the last year, then we realize this issue with mental health and homelessness is not only persistent, but it's progressive.
He says behavioral health support like group therapy, psychiatry, and street health teams is key to addressing not just housing, but healing.
We don't know what our folks have been through before they got here. A lot of them might have had terrible experiences with certain service providers.
He says by combining housing, therapy, and healthcare, Father Joe's Villages removes some of the biggest barriers to recovery and reintegration, things like transportation issues and access to consistent care.
And where people are living in the mode of survival, they don't have a lot of time to chase down these resources. Sometimes they have to do what they need to do to stay safe, put something in their mouth, and figure out a good place to sleep for the night.
Research from UC San Diego backs this up. It shows only about 1 in 4 people who stayed in San Diego County shelters between 2018 and 2023 moved straight into permanent housing. Service providers who pair housing with health and social care are the most successful at helping people leave homelessness for good.
I'm very grateful for Mark for opening all the doors and sticking with me because I am not easy.
For Culver, the journey from survival to stability started with a small leap of faith and a therapist willing to listen. Now, she's in low-income housing, managing her mental health and encouraging others to do the same.
This is the door. If you want to grow, if you want to get out of your situation, this is the door to walk through.
In the first quarter of 2025, Father Joe's Villages helped 77 people move from shelter into permanent housing, slightly fewer than the 86 last year. As demand for mental health care rises, the organization says it is expanding its services to keep pace. Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
In South San Diego County, a mountain biking team is welcoming kids of all abilities. KPBS education reporter Katie Anastas has more on why the kids on the autism spectrum can thrive in the sport.
We do climbs, up hills, down hills, a little bit of everything. The goal is to be as fast as possible with your skill matching that speed.
3 times a week, the East Lake High School and South Bay composite mountain biking team meets for practice at the Lower Otay Reservoir. They compete against other teams in the Southern California League.
At the start of the race, you just feel so scared and your heart is beating. And when you hear them count down, 3, 2, 1, it's so scary. And you just race ahead and you fight to keep that spot.
The team is open to kids in 6th through 12th grade throughout South San Diego County. Many of the coaches are parents of the athletes.
I don't think there's ever a practice or a team training that I come back from where I'm in a bad mood.
Team director Alan Olson says that's true for the kids, too.
There's a lot of research about the benefit of being in nature with mental health and just like emotional well-being, and we really see that in our kids. We really see them come back from a ride just in such a great mood, so excited.
She says they're working on building their inventory of donated bikes they can loan to kids who don't have them.
One of the challenges is, as kids grow really quickly, making sure they've got a bike that fits. We are 100% volunteer and rely on some donations and sponsors to provide some of our kids with bikes who might not have those.
This weekend, Ride for Autism is hosting a fundraiser for the team. The local group of mountain bike riders began organizing charity events for nonprofits that support the autistic community in 2022. Olson says proceeds will help pay for things like equipment and team fees.
Our team will be the recipient of those proceeds this year because they've recognized how much our team has done to be really inclusive of kids of all abilities.
Some of the team members are on the autism spectrum. Andrew Schmidt is one of them. He's 12.
I love how, when you're going up hills, you feel like this burn in your legs. I like that because I know, my muscles are growing.
He likes knowing that with each ride, he's getting stronger.
Sometimes I'm like, I think we should get this ride over with so then I can go home and eat macaroni and cheese. But other times I'm like, I hope this ride never ends. I'm having so much fun.
His dad, Jason Schmidt, is a coach.
So a lot of children on the spectrum really do individualized sports, ones that require less interaction. A lot of the traditional team sports just really don't work for him. And so this team's been great because he's able to be outside and enjoy the outdoors. And really, he's made friends on the team. It's been awesome.
He says he's seen his son grow in his first year on the team.
When he first joined, he was just really not confident in himself. And now he's just so much more confident in his abilities. And he's almost overly confident. He's like, I can do that. And it's great. He couldn't conquer this one little hill, and now he's going up hills 10 times that. And it's truly a wonderful thing, this team.
Andrew shared his advice for kids thinking about trying mountain biking.
It may seem hard at first, but don't give up.
Sign-ups for next year's season begin in October. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
For AAPI Heritage Month, PAC Arts Movement and MTS are unveiling a new Pronto card and bus wrap by local artist Coy Sun. KPBS arts reporter Julia Dixon-Evans tells us what inspires this collaboration.
One city bus is about to get a little more artistic. Artist Coy Sun's illustration shows a family on a bus surrounded by grocery bags of familiar Asian products, drawing on the rich diversity of Asian food and culture in San Diego.
Included things like halo halo, Yakult, to reference my Thai culture, the Three Ladies rice bag, banh mi, just things like that. I try my best to have kind of the big and obvious icon that are recognizable, and I started slowly kind of finding more niche things.
MTS worked with PAC Arts Movement to select an artist to celebrate AAPI heritage.
The first artist that came to mind for me was Coy because of just how bright and bold and really just like the ability to like capture somebody's attention on the street.
Sun's vivid and whimsical sign painting can be found throughout the region, adorning restaurants and bookstores. Connecting to the local community motivates and informs his art.
One of the deep appreciations that I have that I wanted to inspire others to kind of consider is how much access we have to Asian ingredients, Asian culture, things like Seafood City, H Mart, like all these different types of grocery stores just kind of mean a lot to me.
In addition to the bus, Sun's artwork will also be featured on a collectible Pronto card, available for purchase through MTS. Julia Dixon-Evans, KPBS News.
We hope you enjoyed this look at KPBS News this week. I'm John Carroll. Thank you for joining us.